View from the Mexican side. I'm joined by Juan Baker. He's a former Mexican negotiator for the United States. Mexico-Canada agreement and the former Mexican Vice Minister for Foreign Trade. He's now a researcher at the Pan American University. It's really good to have you with us on the programme. How does this look from the Mexican side, the Stay in Mexico directive that is issued today? What does it mean for your country?
Thanks, Christian, for having me. And well, obviously, in Mexico, all the news today regarding Donald Trump's inauguration have been followed with a great deal of detail. The Mexican President, Claudia Sheinbaum, delivered a message to the country in her daily press conference in the morning. And she basically outlined what could be the country's response to what are going to be the first few actions of President Trump. It's fair to say that most of the announcements that were made out today by President Sheinbaum and the government of Mexico emphasize mostly the immigration issue, as the previous speakers in your program had also been underlining. The program that was announced earlier today, called Mexico Embraces You, was designed to receive potential deportees of Mexican nationality. It is less clear, however, what is going to happen if nationals of other countries are also being directed into Mexico. The president did not elaborate on what the country could do. Perhaps the good news or the silver lining on anything that's been announced today from Washington comes out in the form that the much spoken about tariffs that were to be levied on Mexican exports beginning on today, in fact, did not happen. And the markets reacted accordingly to those news. The exchange rate actually strengthened a bit today because the understanding or the way that these news were understood in my country were that, at least from the economic, trade and investment side, the Trump administration was providing, albeit not explicitly, but the Trump administration was providing some space for officials to engage and perhaps come to an agreement that would, from the economic and trade angle, levy, in a way, some space for the Mexican government in days to come.
My country, the UK, has been threatened with tariffs as well, and the Labour government was saying yesterday that they formed a special committee to look at tariffs, reciprocal tariffs that they might have to put in place. Is there a similar unit within the Mexican government that is also looking at the tariffs it might impose on the US government?
Absolutely. I think that the Mexican government prefers that a trade war is not started in North America. Certainly, the Mexican government has made very clear that Mexico will not start one. But in the case that the United States does impose those tariffs, which, by the way, if imposed, those tariffs will be a breach of international agreements. It's not that President Trump has ever been deterred from action because of international agreements. But nonetheless, in the case of Mexico, it is important to keep that moral space in terms of arguing that it is the United States and not Mexico, the country that is breaking those laws. Because henceforth, after the decisions taken after, as you suggest, in the form of potential tariffs or retaliation from Mexico to the United States, will be seen in a different cloud as a sort of reaction to an initial breach by the United States. Clearly, this has also happened in the past, Christian. The fact that Mexico and the United States levy tariffs on each other has at least occurred in two previous occasions. And on those occasions, the tariffs were in place for a couple of months before a final settlement was reached. So in this case, hopefully it won't happen. But I believe that if bad comes to worse, the Mexican government will be forced to retaliate with tariffs of its own.
What's it like living next door to the Gulf of the United States?
Well, from where I'm looking at and the way that we in Mexico are looking at, that is the Gulf of Mexico. It's not really the Gulf of the United States. But, in Mexico, the public reaction to such comments have been mostly about not taking him seriously. Some people argue that there is more than what the president really indicates with those comments. Some people give him the credit, perhaps, suggesting that such comments are part of a much more grander strategy involving the possession of natural resources, as it has also been suggested in the case of Greenland. But people in Mexico, aside from the joke, really, I believe, are much more concerned with the actual issues that could have a direct impact in the day-to-day country's operations, such as migration, security, drug policy, and naturally, as we have spoken just now, the economic impact of potential tariffs.
Yeah. While we're talking to you, Juan Carlos, we're seeing pictures from the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, on which Donald Trump is signing more of these executive orders and directives. He is very shortly due to go to the Commander's Ball, but let's have a listen in.
So they can get him going right now.
Yes, sir.
Is that okay?
Yep, absolutely. This is a proclamation guaranteeing the state's protection against invasion based on the current crisis at the southern border. It invokes various executive powers relating to the ongoing invasion at the southern border.